Thank you so much, Mark, for that introduction. Hi, everyone. It's so good to be with you. In our time together, I would love to explore some themes today, themes of light. And one of the things that came to me as you were talking about this gathering, Mark, of becoming friends through our practice is a Hasidic tale about a rabbi who goes to visit a woman who hasn't been to shul in a very long time. And he knocks on her door. She opens and welcomes him in. They sit together by the fire in silence. And as they watch the fire in the fireplace, the rabbi takes a poker and gently moves aside one of the burning coals. And of course, as the coal is separated from the rest of the flame, it begins to become gray and ashen and without flame. And then the rabbi takes the poker and brings the coal back, and it quickly becomes part of the larger flame and continues to burn. He does all this in silence, nods to the woman and says, "I'll see you in shul next week," and walks out. And I think it's a sweet story, really about how we inspire each other. How, in a way, if we expect to meditate on our own each day, it's almost a cruel expectation that a lot of the practices of mindfulness and meditation that come to us in our contemporary practice today come from cultures that were deeply committed to being in community. And we currently live in this hyper individualistic society. And it may be, it's odd or strange to us to think that we need each other to continue and to inspire those flames, right? We're so, especially I feel like in the last 2 years, we exercise alone, we eat alone, there's this aspect of self-reliance that has been taken to a whole new level. And I want to say that I deeply appreciate this space of being in community, because by allowing me to be part of this community, you inspire me and keep my flames going. So I'll just share a very short teaching on what inspired me today. Today is the 14th of Heshvan. We are in the month, which is sometimes called Mar Heshvan, bitter month, because we are between holidays. And it's really a time of almost like celebratory dormancy. We are going dormant in between these different holidays in the entire month of Heshvan, where there's not really a time of celebration. And I think of this time, as you can see, I have lots of plants behind me. I take great pleasure in observing my plants, and I'm also noticing that a lot of my plants are going dormant, which means that they are losing their color, they're losing their vibrancy, and essentially dying out. But what's amazing about these plants is that within a few months, what looks right now as essentially a dying flower will sprout again, reaching toward light. And so I think of this time as inspired by this time of dormancy, when we can go inward and really go beneath the soil to gather our energies so that we can sprout again in the time of the next time of light. Today, however, is a day of light. We're in the very middle of the month of Heshvan. And tonight there's a full moon. And one of the things that I absolutely love to do is to go outside in the evening to watch the light, to see the light of the moon. And I find it such a beautiful metaphor that is often talked actually about in the Zohar. So the moon is simply a mirror for the light of the sun. And the Zohar explores this subject of light and how we receive divine light. The Torah talks about God as an all-consuming fire, that its brilliance is so bright that we're blinded by it. And if we come close, we might be burned. And the Zohar talks about, well, how can we come close to the divine if the divine is described as an all-consuming fire? So the Zohar describes the necessity for light to be hidden away, for light to be placed in such way around us in everyday objects and everyday experiences, that it is up to us to discover this light, because we can't possibly be in its brilliance and in the presence of its brilliance without being blinded. In the same way that I wouldn't go outside and stare at the sun because it could actually hurt my eyes, it could actually hurt my cornea, but the moon, which is just a reflection of the sun, is something I deeply enjoy looking at. It's not, the light has a different quality. I sometimes even go out with my kids and we look at the moon through the telescope. So playing with these themes of light and the way light is hidden all around us, and the way in which light inspires us. The Zohar also talks about how that we have these special garments that we can wear in order to come closer to the light, to the brilliance of light. And these garments are made of our good deeds. They're woven with the threads of mitzvot that we perform every day in our existence. And I just love that so much. It makes me hopeful. It makes me feel like divine light might be accessible, that it makes me feel like there's an aspect to everyday experience which is exciting. You know, what will today bring? How can I uncover today's potential? How can I find that spark, that sparkle in another human being or in another experience that might bring more light into the world? So as we come into our meditation posture, I simply want to invite you to think of, or to feel into, to contemplate the full moon tonight as we enter into this space of the dormancy of the month of Heshvan, and yet the brilliance of light that the full moon mirrors back to us. I invite you to bring your feet to the ground beneath you, both feet on the ground, with all four corners of your feet touching the earth. Coming into the sensation of feeling held and supported by the structures beneath you. The chair that may be embracing your body. In the same way that the moon reflects the light of the sun, perhaps our bodies, our very bodies, become the vessels of God's divine light. May we reflect that light to one another in this community of people who gather together. Breathing, resting, relaxing, receiving. I invite you to bring gentle, kind awareness to the breath as it flows effortlessly through the body. Notice where it flows most freely. Notice if it is possible to soften the belly. To allow for this nishmat hayim, the breath of life, to flow with ease. May our body be like the coal burning with light, light that we all share. You might imagine turning your face toward light as if seeking it. Noticing if it is possible to rest the face, unfurl the brows, soften the muscles around the eyes, soften the mouth, relax the tongue, and perhaps offer an inner smile meant just for you. Lifting the corners of the mouth. Imagining that light is being reflected back to you. From each person gathered here. Basking in its warmth. This kehila, sustaining the flames. Notice where the mind is now and gently, without judgment, as if training a puppy, bringing it back to the center, sit, stay. Returning back to the intention of basking in the light of the moment. Ayaka. Where are you? Let the answer be Hineni. Here I am. As we bring our practice to a close, I'd like to share a poem by Mary Howe that describes this play of light. Even if I don't see it again, nor ever feel it, I know it is. And that if once it held me, it ever does. And so it is myself I want to turn in that direction, not as towards a place, but it was a tilting within myself. As one turns a mirror to flash the light to where it isn't, I was blinded like that and swam in what shone at me, only able to endure it by being no one, and so specifically myself, I thought I'd die from being loved like that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marita. Friends, I want to note that although I mentioned earlier that today's meditation did not have a sponsor, that was not correct. And actually, we are grateful to Rosanna Ziering, who is sponsoring today's practice. And in fact, we'll carry it over into tomorrow in loving memory of her father, Siggy Ziering, who continues to inspire her daily. May he rest b'shalom, in peace. And for Roseanne, and for all who are in mourning or observing a yard site, or if it's your custom to join in the mourner's Kaddish, we invite you to put the name or names of those you're honoring today in the chat box. And for the rest of us to bear witness, compassionate, kind attention and support for those in mourning who are invited to rise in body or in spirit for Kaddish. Yitgadal, V'yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah,
Amen.
Bialma, Divrach, Yirukei, Biamlich, Malchutei, V'chayechon, V'yomechon, V'chaye, V'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala, V'zman Karev, V'imru, Amen.
Amen.
Yehesh
Yehesh
Shmei
me
Rabbah,
Rabba
Levarach,
Mavarach
Le'olam,
Le'olam
V'lamei,
Le'olam
Amen.
Maya.
Yitbarach,
Yitbarach,
V'yishtabach,
Yishtabach, V'yipar,
V'yitpa'ar,
V'yitmam,
V'yitamam,
V'yitnaseh,
V'yitnaseh,
V'yithadar,
V'yitadar,
V'yithaleh,
V'yitaleh,
V'yithalal,
V'yitamal,
Sumedu
Shmei,
Kunishta,
V'kushta,
B'richu,
V'rechu,
La'ela
La'ela
Mikol
Mikol,
Birakata,
Birkata,
V'shirata,
V'shirata,
Tushbachata,
Ushbachata,
V'nechamata,
V'nechamata,
Damiran,
Damiran,
V'yalma,
V'yalma,
V'imru,
V'imru,
Amen.
Amen.
Yehesh
Yehesh
Rama
Lama
Rabba Ben
Rabban Vim
Shemaya,
Shemaya,
V'chaim
V'chaim
Aleinu,
Aleinu,
V'yal
V'yal
Yisrael,
Kol
V'yimru,
Yisrael,
Amen.
V'imru, Amen.
Oseh Shalom
Oseh Shalom
Beromav,
Beromav,
Huya
Huya
Se
Seh
Shalom,
Shalom,
Aleinu
Aleinu
V'yakol
V'yal Kol
Yisrael,
Yisrael,
V'yakol
V'yal Kol
Yoshvei
Yoshvei
Tevel,
Tevel,
V'yimru,
V'imru,
Amen.
Amen. Friends, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you once again to our teacher, Marita Anderson, for leading us, guiding us so beautifully today. Thanks to Roseanne Ziering for sponsoring our practice today in loving memory of her dad, Siggy Ziering. And thanks to Adi Stein, as ever, for holding our space technologically, that is, with grace and skill. For those who are able, you're welcome to stay on for a few minutes of conversation with Marita about that beautiful practice for today. And for those who are leaving us, we hope you'll join us tomorrow. Rabbi Dorothy Richmond will be leading us in practice on Thursday, tomorrow, that is, at the usual time, 12:30 Eastern, and we hope you can join us then. If you do have a question about the practice or any aspect of the teaching for today, please put it in the chat box. We'll try to keep an eye on it. And I think I'm anticipating people are going to want that poem. So here's a link, folks. Beat you to it. There it is. The poem is called Annunciation. There you go. See? I know these people. All right. So, Marita, thank you so much. First of all, it's always important and really great, to call our attention back again and again to where we are in the cycle of the year and the month, and just to bring our awareness that it's full moon tonight and what that means. And the beautiful tradition in the Zohar about, the different kinds of lights, the direct light, which we can't quite bear, and then the reflected light, which we can not only bear, but we can actually really receive and be channeled through us. I just love that. Plus, I love the story at the beginning too. The only thing, here's what came up for me. I don't know if it's a question. This is really just a topic for conversation. Is that because I don't know anything about this? Maybe you do. Maybe somebody else here does. But the relationship between the cycles of the moon and the tides. And I was, when I was sitting, as you were suggesting, just letting myself bask in the reflected light of the love of moon. It suddenly occurred to me, oh, the tides. This affects the tides, doesn't it? Do you know? Do you know anything about that? Maybe somebody else here does. Don't want to put you on the spot.
No, I mean, there, other than that, that it affects tides.
Yeah, we're
Right?
experts on this.
Well,
Maybe someone here.
Yeah, I wonder if there's some yearning that it affects some of our inner yearning too.
That's what I was going for there.
I'm not an expert on the astronomical aspect of it.
But I love the idea that, if it creates a higher tide, that it was reflected in our, like you said, our yearning. I thought that would be kind of a cool observation.
Yeah.
But we can just make it up because tides are usually extra and extra low at full moon. Thanks, Irina and Bruce. So whatever we want to make of that, I suppose. Scrolling through seeing if there's, here's a question. How can our community be inspired to be together and serve in person to pray? We have so few services. We all need help to inspire others. Well, I guess that, I don't know, this goes to the question of, what you're talking about I love that story at the beginning about the fire and the embers and the coals. So I don't know if we have an answer to people coming together these days, but maybe we can stay with that theme for a minute about what does it mean for us to gather every time of this day?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
I have a reflection, if I might share
sure,
with you.
please.
I noticed that I have been very slow to returning to being in community.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been sort of exploring my own experience in my body, right? So that's why I love the way in which these Hasidic tales and the way in which Jewish tradition in general, with the way in which we use our everyday objects to kind of use as a metaphor for what we ourselves are experiencing. And the Zohar talks about actually, I think it's Sefer Yetzirah that talks about the relationship between the physical world and the soul aspect, that, that the physicality of the coal like the flame requires the physicality of the coal to exist within in order to create light. And so that's inspiring to me because my body practices have really enlightened me in a way to what I need at every particular juncture in my life, right? Like I need to listen to my body to know what the body needs and to know what I am at ease with and what makes me uncomfortable. And I think that I lived most of my adult life without that knowledge. And so I really deeply appreciate it now. And I'll give you an example which might help. The Braves are playing the Dodgers right now. And there is a game in Atlanta on Sunday night. And I live with a child, my middle son, who is just a fanatic when it comes to sports, all sports. And somehow he convinced us that it was a good idea for us to go to the game. And as I explore this idea of coming back in community and being with people, I imagined that it would be a good idea to go to this game. And then when I arrived at the stadium and I sat down in my seat and breathed into my body, I almost had, that same experience. I actually described it to my kids as I went bungee jumping when I was a teenager, and my entire body was just screaming like, "This is wrong! You shouldn't be doing this!" And I did it anyway, and so that's what it felt like to be in the stadium.
Just being with that many people.
Being with that many people, like the flame was too much. It was burning. And I had to listen to my body to say, I have to back up. Right. And I think it's that listening to the body and being in honest conversation with the body that is going to guide our return to being in community. And what does community mean, right? For my son, community means being in the stadium of people cheering for his favorite team. For me, community means a much more intimate, smaller experience. And so I think for each of us, it's going to be really about being honest with ourselves of what our body needs and what our body can handle. And when we feel like we may be burning up, and when we feel like we're actually being warmed in ways that are nourishing. I don't know if that was the exact question, but I just felt like, as I explored this theme of being in community and not wanting to isolate myself, I also understand that it's going to require like titrating and self-regulation and managing. And for each one of us, that's going to mean a different thing. And that kind of self-compassion and self-acceptance that we need in order to re-enter spaces in a healthy, wholesome way.
There's a lot of wisdom there. Thank you for that. I put, by the way, the whole poem in the chat box, and for people who wanted to see it. Someone is referencing, and there was a question that was linking Lech Lecha to your teaching, but I don't see it, unfortunately. I do think it is worth revisiting this poem.
Oh, I think the Lech
You see
Lecha,
it?
something about going home, relax, being at rest, leaving. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. It's I guess the one place where I feel like we could connect it to Lech Lecha is I think it's Kedushat Levi, who has a teaching about wherever you go, you're actually it's wherever you go, you're going back to the root, and you're revealing the light wherever it is, revealing the sparks wherever they are. So in a way, I guess we can connect it to Lech Lecha, that wherever we are, wherever we're going, let it
Mhm.
be in service of revealing light.
Yeah. Maybe also that this, it's this paradox. It's also in that Hasidic story about the treasure, right? About going, the about having a dream that I have to go dig up a
Yeah.
treasure far
There's
away,
treasures right
and
here.
ultimately it's right here. So the Lech Lecha, I think, has that paradox of movement, but it's what's the movement towards? This movement is towards ourself, and it is in that poem. I think I put the words in the chat box. I'll put it again. I'm sure, I guess you have it handy, but the ending of it, or the last two stanzas, or three stanzas. So it is myself I want to turn in that direction. It is myself I want to turn in that direction, not as towards a place, right? I don't go to a place, but a tilting within myself.
In
There's
myself.
right? As one turns a mirror to flash the light to where it isn't.
Yeah.
I was blinded like that and swam in what's shown at me, only able to endure it by being no one. And so specifically myself, there's another paradox, right? Being specifically myself, lecha or lach, and being no one.
Yeah.
And it's, the power of that. I thought I'd die, that's sort of the Hebrew term dveikut, which means literally cleaving, but it's like those flashes, those moments of connection that are transcendent and unbearable also, right? That we kind of like can flinch at it too.
Yeah.
So I think today, really, Marita, what I want to appreciate is, you helped us kind of stay with it, to really stay in the light, and by reminding us that sometimes, the light has to be reflected. I mean, there's so many instances of this, right? There's also where God says, you can't see my face, but you can see my back, and I'll make all my goodness pass before you. So there's like the indirect refraction of divine light, which we can tolerate to whatever degree we can, and to some extent we can tolerate it best if we're able to let go of ourselves a little bit by going into ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would also add, I think when I first started meditating, I was kind of in that space of expecting something magical every time. And I would get really frustrated because sometimes magical things did happen, right? But I was so frustrated that it wouldn't happen all of the time. And I was like, oh, I must not be doing it right. Or I would question myself or doubt myself, or get frustrated. And I remember a teacher, I think it was actually Rabbi Shefa Gold, who told me, just glimpse, just it's enough to just glimpse.
Yep.
And to collect the glimpses of light along the way, that it isn't necessary to have, a transcendent experience, something magical, something that is difficult to describe in words, that it is enough to simply glimpse. And so this poem, which says, as one turns a mirror to flash the light to where it isn't, it's enough to just catch those little glimpses of light for me, to know that it is worth it for me to stay in that space to catch the glimpses of the mirror of the light.
That's again a lot of wisdom there. Really appreciate that. So thank you so much, Marita. As always, this was beautiful. I think everyone really appreciated it, and
Thank
it is
you.
really nice. It really is really nice to just observe and mark and celebrate the connections and friendships that have been developing over this time in this practice, and the way you lifted that up with that story was really really touching and inspiring. So thank you for that. And tonight on the full moon, wherever you may be, you might want to go out if you
Look
can
up.
and look up and sit and stay for a little bit. Right? That was also fantastic.
Yeah.
Every time I'm with my kid's dog now, I'll do that. I'm gonna remain agnostic about the Braves and Dodgers as a Phillies fan. So I don't want to get involved in that. But
Yeah.
good for your son's sake. Good luck to the Braves.
Thank you.
And for your sake too.
Oh yeah, I lasted about 10 minutes
Yeah.
in that game and I was out.
Yeah, we got some LA people here too, so we're not gonna go too deeply into that.
Yeah. Well,
All right,
thank you
everyone.
so much. Be well, everyone.
Be well.